So yeah, so this is the machine here. This is the Acetronic MPU 1000, and as I was saying, it's a very unusual machine. It's not my machine. It's a guy called Phil Wilson's machine, and he asked me to refurbish it, restore it, and composite mod it. I'm actually using it because it's the only one that I've got that has two working controllers. And actually, the controllers are quite interesting because the left controller is actually a Princetronic controller, and the right one is an original Acetronic. So at some point in the dim distant past, the left controller must have broken and has been replaced with one from a completely different console. But it does work. It works a lot better now than it did. So this machine has been completely stripped and cleaned inside and out. All the electrolytic capacitors have been changed. I've changed the voltage regulators on it, and then converted it to composite. So taken the composite signal from the PAL converter chip and run it through a little amplifier that's built into it. And I've managed to figure out how to do all of that without actually throwing anything or making permanent damage to it. Apart from the RCA jacks in the back, it's the modulator is still there, the aerial lead is still there. They're just tucked and packed away inside so that they can be restored later
Nice
on.
job.
Yeah, so I'm quite pleased with it. It's really good. I mean, obviously, it's still like cosmetically not in perfect condition, but it's a lot better than it was originally. And I'm now looking at the boxes that came with it and the packaging, so that's the next thing that I need to do to figure out. But yeah, I'm really pleased with it, and it works fantastically. So it's just taken me several months in my spare time to do it. But Phil's been very good about it, and has just let me get on with it until it's done. So that's the machine that we're going to use. And the game that I want to play is Planet Defender. So it's quite an unusual game. I'm going to stick it in, and we can start. There we go. So switch this back. There we go. So yeah, this is obviously a version of missile command. And one of the things that I was really interested in with this is that obviously these machines use analog joysticks, as you know, Derek. And so the games are very different. And I think, one of the things that's fascinated me, and I've wanted to try out on original hardware and show on original hardware, is how different these games are when you use analog joysticks. And of course, Missile Command is supposed to be a trackball game. So the faster you move the trackball, the faster your reticle moves around the screen. Whereas on a digital joystick, if you move right, it moves right at a constant speed. If you move up, it moves up at a constant speed. And so that's kind of what we've had for a lot of these games. The missile command on the Atari 2600 is like that. The missile command clone that we tried out on the Hanimex 2650 was like that as well. But this uses an analog joystick, so the reticle should move to where the joystick is positioned on the screen, and so should be quite a different game experience. And of course, as far as I'm aware, emulators don't really emulate that. So emulators, there's no, unless you actually figure out some way of attaching an analog joystick to your PC, I don't think the emulators really support that. So I don't think anybody's really played a game that relies on the analog joystick on an emulator. And so I think as a result of that as well, the games are rubbish. I think a lot of people have tried playing them emulated and just come away with the impression that the games are really bad. But I can imagine this game would be really bad if you couldn't move the reticle to where on the screen you want it to be positioned almost instantly. I think that completely changes the gameplay. So that's what I want to try out.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure the Win Arcadia emulator will run analog joysticks.
But you'd need an analog joystick to connect to your PC in order to play it.
Yeah. Yeah, I'll have to have a look at the little controller that I've got. I'm pretty sure that that's analog. I'll have to look at that. See if I can get that running now.
You mean the controller that you've currently already got to play emulated games?
Yeah. I must admit, I only really used it for playing my own creations, which I was working in digital mode anyway. But
right.
I'm pretty sure I played Pong and things with it.
I wonder how many people who play emulated retro games have got an analog controller of any kind, though.
Well, I don't know.
Anyway, while we chat, let's play. So you can see I can move around the screen. At least I hope you can see I can move around the screen very, very quickly. My reticle is just a line. Which presumably has something to do with the way that graphics are generated. And the targeting, rather than targeting ahead of the ICBMs, you have to almost target behind them. Oh, it looks like these are all converging on one. Let's see. Yeah, you've got all three.
Oh.
I've also only got one missile base. And I don't think... No. Yeah. I can't fire multiple shots at once, so it is a single shot and then move on kind of game. And in fact, when I fire, my reticle doesn't move until my missile hits. And then when my missile hits, my reticle then is repositioned to the joystick position. So if I fire here, if I fire over there and then move, you'll see that it kind of warps over to the left and over to the right. So I can move, obviously I can move in advance, or I can have my joystick take up a different position. But yeah, it won't. It's actually kind of, it pauses at the location of my previous shot until that shot's complete. So you can't do that thing in Missile Command where you just like spread, create a protective shield across the whole of the playfield. And also I'm protecting just 4 cities. So it gets faster as you get through these levels. This is obviously the first difficulty level. As it gets faster, we should also get, there's another level gone, so it's now stepped up again. And then we should also get smart missiles. Well, actually, I think the cruise missiles, they're either dumb or they're smart. And I think at this level we get dumb ones, if that makes sense. I think they basically stick to a trajectory. Okay, there we go. Oh no. Whoa. Oops, that was a miss. Oh dear.
Ooh.
I think if it hits my missile base in the middle, I think that only costs me one missile, and I think I've actually got I think I've got 35 missiles per wave. Oh dear, there goes one of my. Oh no, this is getting bad now. Oh dear. Right, I've got 2 cities left. It's quite hard. Oh, okay. So I just got another city back at 1,000 points. I'm out. I'm out. I'm out of missiles.
Is there a counter on there somewhere that tells you how many you've got? I'm not seeing anything.
No, there isn't a counter. There we go, 3,255. So that really gets quite intense.
Yeah.
That definitely gets quite intense. Yeah, so it's quite hard to position your reticle really accurately, unfortunately. But it is, I mean, it does feel a lot better than the missile command that we played on the Hanimex. However, there are some other modes, so let me just have a little look. So, yeah, those cruise missiles can be dumb and smart, and target control can be fast or slow. So let's try it. Let's just try it in mode 2, just see if the target control difference is really obvious. Okay. So this is supposed to be fast target control. Does that make a difference to... I can't really tell. Maybe. Let me just switch back to single. Yeah, that seems jerkier, actually, and actually more difficult to position. So I think fast target control is doing something to the positioning of my reticle. I think actually fast target control makes it slightly easier to position. I think it's updating slightly faster and it's less jerky as I move it across the screen. I'm not sure if it's coming across on the video or not, but it seems that way.
Yeah, it's hard to tell.
Yeah, of course, what you're seeing is lower quality than what's on the stream as well, isn't it? So.
Oh, it's pretty good quality.
Good.
You've got the targeting down good anyway.
Yeah, it's not so bad at this level. I think I might just change the the game mode actually, so that it starts a bit faster, because it is very easy at this level, but obviously it gets much harder, and it's quite a long wait for the cruise missiles. Also, this mode is still dumb cruise missiles, so let's
What does a smart cruise missile do?
Well, I'd like to know as well. Let's try it out. So yeah, let's go with so firing rate. The firing rate changes, so I could go to firing rate 2 and go fast targeting smart missile. So that would be variation 8. Okay, let's try this. Okay, so it started faster. The sound is very basic. It's literally just
I can actually hear it.
You can?
Yeah, I guess I'm picking up from your microphone now.
Ah, yeah, okay.
Fairly faint, but it sounds good. It's a good level.
Yeah. I'd like it to bank a city for me when I get to 1,000. Ah, whoa. Right. Okay.
Now it's just got...
Did you see that? I think that explains what the smart missiles are.
No, I'm not really seeing what's going on. It just seemed to have suddenly got real fast.
Yeah, so the smart missiles, they don't just they change their target. So they come across the screen and you don't know which city they're targeting, and they suddenly dive for the city that they're after.
Okay.
Jesus.
So it's the baddies that have got the smart missiles.
Yes,
Right.
yes, sorry.
Okay.
No, he's gonna get it, yeah. Yeah, so it's those dots, they're probably really a bit small for you to see.
I can just see them, yeah.
They're quite visible to me here. But... The enemy ICBMs have gone green as well. I don't know why that is. I don't know if different waves have different colours. This is a remarkably good game. Oh dear, I've done 2 cities. Oh, up to 3 again. No, that city doesn't last very long. That one doesn't matter.
So the cities are the red blocks, is that right?
Yes, the cities are the red blocks at the bottom, yeah.
What are the cyan blocks? So, I mean, one is obviously a missile base.
Yeah, so the missile base is the little red dot on the top of it, but I don't know really. The cyan blocks I think are just, I don't know, geographic features. Oh, Damn it! Damn it! Oh my god, it's still alive. Okay, I've got one left. I went past 4,000 and a city appeared for literally a split second before it was annihilated. Okay, I've gone up again. It's another level I've gone up. Wow. This thing is fast. This machine is fast. That's it, that's it. Wow, 4512. Okay.
Well done.
Yeah, thanks. That's genuinely a good game. Really, yeah. I mean, it's game number 33. I have a feeling. I think this was an Acetronic special. I think it was exclusive to the Acetronic. I don't think it came out on other machines. So it would be fascinating to play it on different of these machines with an adapter, obviously. But yeah, it must have been a really late game. So potentially at the same time that you were working on Leapfrog, Derek, someone else was building Planet Defender for the Acetronic specifically.
Possibly. Have to have a look at the code and see if anybody's put a date or anything.
Yeah.
I mean, copyright tag on there.
16. So that was on mode 8. I'm going to try it on 16 and have a look.
Hello, good morning.
Ah, there you are.
Good morning, Lee.
Hi.
How are you doing?
I'm very well. How are you?
All right. I don't know if you've been watching any of the stream.
I was watching the stream. It looked pretty hectic.
Yes.
The sound reminded me of that trick that you do in like in movies and things where you it almost simulates a heartbeat. Or something,
yeah.
where it gets faster and faster and faster. It was getting pretty tense.
It was. It is. It's a remarkably tense game, and it ramps up really slowly, and then suddenly it's just overwhelming. And so, this is the hardest setting. This is the max setting. So I'm going to try it on this and see what happens. See if it's even playable. Okay, so the smart missiles from the off.
Oh, they're a bit fast, aren't they?
Yeah. So this is not as fast as I got to on the previous go. Well, that doesn't matter. Oh dear, yeah. So I'm.
Oh.
Yeah.
Okay.
I've got the video's cutting out a little bit here actually on the projector. Is it cutting out for you?
Yeah, it's flickering. The lines are flickering on and off. Maybe it's because it's going so fast now that the machine can't keep up.
Maybe, yeah. Yeah, so...
Because the other lines were fine before.
I don't know. It seems like... Yeah, something's not quite right here. Maybe let's just flick it off a sec.
But the rest of the image is stable. It's not like the entire image is flickering on and off.
Oh, the whole thing is going off for me.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
oh, okay.
Yeah, I'm getting the whole thing cutting out. I think it's probably you're probably seeing a frame rate related flicker.
Sure.
Wow.
So the bases were constant for us, but the lines were flickering on and off.
So yeah, I think the Retro Tink was struggling with the signal.
It's probably not an issue because you can't last more than about 15 seconds.
No. Yeah, well, that's largely because it kept like it was like the image was doing long blinks, you know. Suddenly I couldn't see anything at all for like half a second. So.
Just something which was quite interesting watching you play this versus Missile Command.
Oh dear. Yeah.
Is that because the explosions are longer lasting in Missile Command, you kind of obviously you have to lead the missile, but you can also you sort of lay them down. You put one down and then you go off and you put another one down.
Yeah.
Knowing that, because in this one it's more like you have to target each one individually, one at a time.
Yeah. Yeah. So I don't know if you were. I was saying earlier about how that smart missile was way faster. I was saying earlier about how when you fire, your reticle actually freezes.
Yeah, I saw that. I wondered if that was just a limitation of the machine.
I mean, I
It
guess
doesn't
there we
seem like
go.
a game. It doesn't seem like a gameplay choice, does it?
No, yeah, it doesn't. And it's kind of strange in a way. Like the machine's clearly fast enough to deal with a lot of things happening at once.
Mm.
So in a sense, from a coding and game design point of view, they could have added multiple missiles and
Mm-hmm.
taken the hit of making it slightly slower when it gets really hectic later.
Mm-hmm.
Like it could have been dialed back a little bit in terms of the
Yeah.
hecticness
Yeah.
in favor of allowing you to make multiple shots. But
Was this another one of
I don't
those
know if they even
games
tried
that
it.
was this another one of those games where if they made it too close to Missile Command, then Atari would have taken it down?
I don't know. Maybe it's possible. I guess. Yeah. I mean, it still seems very close, doesn't it?
Yeah.
But I suspect it's probably more that these games had to get out, and the design decisions you make early on are the design decisions you stick with because it needs to get out the door.
Mm.
Bearing in mind the entire lifespan of this machine was only about 3 years.
Mm.
And a lot of these games that came out later on, they were really just trying to cash in at the end.
It's just quite late on in its lifespan then.
Yeah, this is game 33, so and it's also it's a unique game to the Acetronic, I think. I'm pretty sure I read that. So it only came out for the Acetronic, and I think it came out in '83. So these machines had already been out for 3 years by then. They were this was kind of the end of their lifespan because everybody was shifting in the UK, which is where this machine was made and marketed. Everyone was shifting over to the 8-bit computers.
Oh, is this a UK machine?
Yeah.
Oh, I just figured it was a US machine.
No. So that's one of the things that I find particularly interesting about these machines. They all came out of like a parallel research program that Philips were running. So Philips were running with Magnavox in the US to produce what became the Magnavox Odyssey 2 using Intel, an Intel chipset.
Mm-hmm.
And that was the VideoPack G7000 series in Europe. But in parallel to that, they'd also acquired Signetics, and they had a separate program going with a company called Radifin to build a Signetics-based machine.
That seems such a bizarre strategy, doesn't it?
Really odd. And they really weren't that behind the Magnavox effort because, as we talked about a few weeks ago, they tried for ages to shut that down, and most of the games were designed and coded by a single person. But also their strategy for the Radifin chipset was that Radifin produced boards and then licensed them to other manufacturers, and so there's a whole load of different manufacturers that used Radifin boards or used the underlying design to create new boards for different machines that are all software compatible but not hardware compatible. So they're
cartridge based.
They're cartridge based, yeah. So the cartridges look like this, but the cartridges for the Rotron series and the Interton series and the Voltmaze database that Derek worked on are different. They're all incompatible with each other, even though they're basically the same games came out for them. So as I say, Planet Defender was only released for this machine, but this Acetronic was hardware compatible with some other British and European machines made by Princetronic and by Radifin themselves, but also by Fountain, I think, in France, and Hanimex did a version called the 1292. So there's other manufacturers that basically use exactly the same case and motherboard to produce their versions, and those cartridges are all compatible with each other. And then there are other manufacturers that design different boards using the same chipset that are software compatible, but they have their cartridges are different sizes. The pinouts are different. on the cartridges. So that's one of the things that Derek has been working on, is trying to produce a universal cartridge.
Right. Yes.
So initially for the Voltmace database, but the idea is to create adapters so that those games can also be played on some of these machines.
Sure.
Isn't that right, Derek?
Yeah.
More or less.
Probably go with the Acetronic format as the main board, and then make adapters that will plug into.
Yeah.
On the other machines, the Voltmace is different in that it's a single-sided printed circuit board, so it's 32 pins wide, whereas the Acetronic is double-sided and 16 pins wide.
Yeah.
On two sides.
Yeah, so it would be a smaller form factor for the Acetronic, and also I think certainly in the UK the Acetronic, or this type, was much more popular, I guess. They sold more of them, so there's more of them around, and they're cheaper, I guess, more easily available. Whereas the Rotrons are slightly rarer, and the Voltmace and VideoMaster databases are rarer as well. And then there's the Intertons in Germany that are also quite popular over there. And then there's a whole bunch of others. I think there's at least 30 different clones of this machine of various types and compatibilities, and there's like tables showing which ones are compatible with each other, and like which games came out for them at what time and what number they are and stuff like that. So it's a really confusing picture, but I'm trying to put together like good working and composite modded examples of all of the UK machines.
Right.
So I have an Acetronic that's waiting for me to finish the controller. I have a Radafin that's on my workbench at the moment, and I've got another Princetronic which doesn't work, which I need to figure out what's wrong with it first. And then I've got all the databases that Derek and I have been kind of discussing at what point what the history was, because they were originally made by VideoMaster, and then Voltmace took over the manufacture and marketing of them and everything. And then there's the Rotron Teleng. So I think they were built by Teleng in Hong Kong and marketed by Rotron. And I've got a couple of those as well. Not converted to composite yet. So yeah, there's this whole kind of like history of British video game manufacturers producing consoles and cartridges from about 1978 to 83 or so, that is sort of forgotten. People aren't even aware that there is this little period in between Pong, the first generation of video games, the Pong generation, and the
8-bit systems.
Kind of the 8-bit systems, and the third generation. And when people think of the second generation, it's completely dominated by the Atari 2600.
2600, that's right, yeah, of course.
That was the machine that everybody wanted, but these machines were cheaper. So these were like the real working class video game consoles of the late 70s and early 80s in the UK. Yeah.
Also fascinating, I'm thinking about from a logistical point of view of you've got all these software compatible machines. So you work for a company and you write some code and you think, okay, I'm going to make a good game, and this is a great platform to target because they're all software compatible. So you write your game.
Right.
But then you have to make this manufacturing decision about which cartridge shape do you target, you almost, because the delivery mechanism is different, you almost eliminate the advantage of it being software compatible, because the hardware is such a nightmare.
Yeah, of course, the industry didn't work like that back then.
No.
All of the coding was done by people that were hired by the individual manufacturers, and the individual manufacturers were trying to differentiate themselves and create their own ecosystems, which, of course, in retrospect, we know is not the way to do it.
Yeah, sure.
The way to do it is to create a platform and make it as compatible as possible, and try and attract as many games developers and as much content to your platform as possible. So So yeah, this is all part of the learning process. Looking at it now, it seems completely crazy that they would leave themselves so open to being undermined by different hardware platforms, by making them incompatible with each other.
I suppose they're just trying to protect themselves, aren't they?
They were all fighting over a very small nascent industry, and very few people had the vision that actually this industry would one day be, bigger than music and cinema combined.
Yeah, I mean the Voltmace brought out that adapter for the Acetronic, and they actually took patent out on it.
Right.
Which seems extreme, really bizarre. I mean, I don't know whether they actually made any money from doing such. But it seems a really odd thing to take a patent on as well. It's just a printed circuit board with two connectors.
Right, so the adapter... Oh, the adapter for using Acetronic cartridges on your
yeah, I can't
database.
remember now which way. Can't remember which way round it went now, but yeah.
I think that is what it was, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, they're like hen's teeth. Finding those adapters. Well, actually, I did speak to someone who's got one, and took some really good photos of it for us so that we can see how it's the internal circuitry. But yeah, that's right. You're right. I remember now. Yeah, it actually says patent pending on the adapter. I mean, equally, I guess, patent offices had absolutely no idea how to evaluate some of these patents. I mean, I remember there's a story about Atari, isn't there? When Atari was going through one of its regular periods of trying to avoid bankruptcy in the late 80s, I think it was, or early 90s, maybe it was after the Jaguar, possibly. It was at some point. Yeah, it must have been a bit later on. They suddenly realised that they held patents for a whole set of kind of standard game mechanics. So scrolling backgrounds, for example, objects that disappear off one side of the screen and reappear on the other side of the screen. Atari actually held patents for these things, and they came to an agreement, I think, with Nintendo to retroactively pay like $120 million in licenses for having breached the terms of the patents over the previous decade of making games, and that kept them going.
That was done by some hardware mechanism rather than purely software?
No, it was just the concept.
Wow.
It was just the very idea of objects disappearing and reappearing. As far as I remember. So yeah, Atari was very famously very corporate about all of this stuff, but yeah, it turned out that going through the effort of patenting basically everything that was dreamt up by Atari's coders, which I guess is another reason they decided to all go and set up their own studio at Activision. It was all patented by the suits. Oh dear, I've got one back. This is like a difficult split in bowling. I'm trying to protect cities at the two extremes here. Oh, that's gone.
So I was thinking that the analog joystick presumably is, if you hold the analog stick in the bottom left-hand corner, the cursor's in the bottom left-hand corner.
Yeah.
That's absolute positioning.
Yeah. Yeah, that's right. Oh, Wow. Okay, that smartphone was very fast. And that's
How easy is it to hold it in place?
very easy. Yeah. So that's another thing that would be interesting to try on the database, because these joysticks are not spring loaded. If I put the controller up here, they stay in position. Yeah. So you can hold them and just gradually tweak them over and control them that way.
So that must be faster and more accurate than the trackball, because the trackball was relative, wasn't it? So
Okay, come here. Give you a hug. Yeah, so that's really what I wanted to try out to see how it was going. Hello.
Bye.
You okay?
Bye.
You go and have fun, okay?
Bye.
Yeah.
Bye, Flynn.
But Derek says bye, Flynn. Bye, he says. But yeah, so that was one of the things that I was really interested in is how a game like this works with the analog joystick. And we were saying at the beginning that I think a lot of these games get a bad rap because no one's playing them with the original hardware. People are playing them emulated, and with digital controls. And I think this game would be absolutely rubbish with digital controls. And in fact, like, I think most of these games would be rubbish. They're all designed with the affordances of the machines in mind. So yeah, the idea that you can go very, very quickly from one side of the screen to the other is kind of a crucial affordance of a lot of these games. You know, games like Circus, where you have to move very rapidly to catch. And I think actually, this is one of the things that's always fascinated me, that there's lots of opportunities to use those affordances to create completely different game experiences that aren't dictated by the kind of games that people wanted and were easy to sell back in the early 80s. So not clones of popular arcade games, but games that actually take advantage of the fact that you're using an analog joystick inherently, you know.
Yeah,
Anyway.
I just wonder how much the consumer actually cared about that at the time, though.
I don't know. I don't think the consumer cared at all, and I think actually probably having analog joysticks was a mistake in a way, because people were used to digital joysticks in the arcade. I mean, it must have been really, like, producing Leapfrog, for example, using an analog joystick must have been.
Just converted it to digital, basically.
Right. So as soon as it goes over a threshold, it just
Yeah.
But I wonder how it is. I haven't got Leapfrog, so I wonder how it is to play. Obviously, the database joystick is self-centering, which helps. But compared with the arcade, you've got micro switches and it's a short shift, short throw joystick, very notchy. So that's part of the experience, isn't it?
It wouldn't be playable at all if it wasn't self-centering, wouldn't it? You wouldn't be able to knock it.
No. Yeah. So as far as I'm aware,
holding the stick and moving it up, middle, up, middle, up. I mean, that'd be awful, wouldn't it?
Yeah. Yeah, it would be. Yeah, and as far as I'm aware, there isn't a Frogger clone on any of these consoles.
Mm.
But just as a comparison, let's just go back to Super Maze a sec. One of the things that you have with Super Maze. Let's go. Oh, actually, I kind of want to go to 5, I think. So, in this version, this is the hidden maze variant of Super Maze. So the idea is to get to the right-hand side of the maze, and you do it kind of by feeling where the maze runs. And I don't know if you can see on the joystick, you probably can't, but I'm moving the joystick around the edges to see. That's not going to work. I've gone wrong somewhere. So where's the gap? There it is. Down. No. lose here? Yeah, I think this would be quite difficult to do. Ah, that's that way. Or less satisfying to do with a digital joystick. But with this one, you can just position the joystick on an edge and kind of run the cursor down the edge of a maze, you know, searching for the passageway, and it's quite satisfying. It's quite a nice experience doing this. I think with a digital joystick, you'd have to like physically try every option. And
does a digital joystick typically let you move in two directions at the same time, like up and right?
Yeah, it does. Yeah. So you could kind of like strafe down, yeah. But so I think it would still work. I don't think it would be
as tactile. Yeah.
Yeah, but it's nice to sort of, yeah, just the ability to position the joystick and for the joystick to stay there, and the way that you manipulate it and move it around is quite nice. I'm kind of, yeah, I'm wondering what other experiences there are that make sense to have an analog joystick. I've absolutely no idea why these things had analog joysticks in the first place. Mind, I don't know why that was the choice.
Yeah, when Voltmace started selling them for the BBC computer and the like, one of their advertising points was that it was good for playing things like flight simulators.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I must admit, both of the games I wrote, I basically used them in a digital mode anyway.
Yeah.
But you know, there are certain things, you know, if you want to fire in a particular direction, you know, you can do that with an analog. I did wonder when you were playing Missile Command there, whether instead of actually tying it to the absolute position, whether you could use it to control the velocity at which you move.
Yeah.
Oh, good grief.
In a particular direction.
Because that would make it easier.
Well, I was thinking more in terms of emulating a trackball.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm stuck. I'm going to lose. It's got to be here somewhere. Oh, there it is. There you go.
It could certainly be another mode, couldn't it?
Hmm?
If you could change the control mechanism to be from absolute positioning to velocity, or so my friend's Apple IIe, he had two analog sticks, and the joystick itself had switches on it, I think, to change it between analog and digital.
Right, yeah.
And it also had self-center or not. So you could switch the self-centering on and off.
Yeah, that's like the best of all worlds, isn't it?
Wow, I wonder how that worked.
Yeah.
Some interesting mechanical stuff going on.
And I also remember it had trims on it, so you could fine-tune the center position.
I can't get in here. Oh. There it is.
I did see a while back somebody had made a homebrew joystick out of a jet fighter joystick.
Oh my God.
An actual.
Yeah.
Nice.
Oh yeah.
Fantastic.
Actual yoke.
That must have been pretty heavy. If you're going to play a flight simulator game, then what you really want is an actual aircraft.
Yeah, people go to town on flight sim rigs, don't they? I mean, I mean, an analog joystick would have been great for a flight sim, but I don't think a flight sim was ever produced for these consoles, even a kind of rudimentary one. Obviously, there was like flight combat, tank air battle, things like that.
I remember for my old Atari 800, I had a helicopter, like an Apache helicopter game, and there was a mode where you could use two joysticks. So you had the right stick for the controlling and the left stick for the collective. Yeah.
Oof,
And I think the rudder as well. I think the left hand had the rudder and the collective, and the right hand had the the actual stick.
cool. I'm just going to put this on because this, I think, see, this would have benefited from having analog because it doesn't. So this is just using a digital threshold and a constant speed for your tank. But I think it would have been great if this had a full analog mode on it.
You could just whip it from
Yeah,
left to
from
right.
left to right, and you know, it'd be a very different experience.
I think the aliens complained that wasn't fair.
Yeah. Oh, missed it. I mean, it's not the greatest version of Invaders, obviously, but
Isn't it funny how the balance and the feel of a game is so affected by such small decisions? Because you look at this game and you think, there's no reason why this game should be any less satisfying than the classic Space Invaders. And yet, it just doesn't, I don't know, it just doesn't quite feel right, does it?
it doesn't feel right playing it with an analog joystick. It doesn't feel good playing it with an analog joystick.
No, I'm sure.
Because obviously it's got no, the travel's just too far. So it kind of.
Oh, do you have to swing it quite far left and right then?
Well, not very far, but there's no positive, like you're telling it to go right.
Yes,
yeah?
sure.
You're just moving it slightly, and if you did move it all the way over, you can. Then the travel is quite a long way. So it doesn't feel like you're ever in total control of your tank. It would probably have been better to have used a couple of the buttons, because I've got what, 12 buttons or so, more than that actually. I've got 14 buttons, although 3 of them are all wired together. They're the fire buttons. It would have been better to have just used a couple of the buttons for movement left and right, really, rather than the analog joystick in a digital mode. So.
How easy would it be to actually use the buttons, though? I find them kind of cumbersome.
Yeah.
Ergonomically, yes, I can imagine.
And basically, if I had to play any game on the keyboard or whatever, I'm at a complete loss as to which button to be pressing at any one time, if there's more than one of them.
I think it would have to be, like the arcade, where you move while the button is held down, and when you release the button, you stop. And then I think it would be relatively easy. I mean, you could just use the buttons at the bottom. Oh, that's interesting. Oh, so the bottom right button actually shows me my score. Oh, I wonder if there's a button that shows me how many missiles I've got left on. Right, this might be the last thing that we do.
Yeah, because hiding that information is clearly
detrimental. There it is. Okay, let's see. Oh, okay.
Just trying all the different buttons.
Yeah, I'm trying all the different buttons. But so any button down the center, any middle button will fire. Actually, just fire the missile. Yeah, and the red fire buttons will do the same. Yeah. Okay, so that's it. So apparently there are 35 missiles that you have in your missile base. And of course, when the ICBM hits, it doesn't destroy your base like it does in normal missile command. It just destroys the current missile that you've got loaded up. And you get a new set of 35 every wave, and there are 7 ICBMs in each wave. So I think you get 5 missiles per ICBM, which seems like a lot. And if one of them hits your missile base, you only lose 1. So that's why I was a little bit surprised that I ran out.
You ran
missiles.
out. Yeah. Because it's actually quite hard for you to use them up that quickly.
Yeah. Especially because I'm not, strafing.
No, that's right.
So.
Bizarre. The target, is it just a line on your screen?
Yes.
And is it flickering on your screen?
Very, very rapidly. Everything's flickering very, very rapidly.
Okay.
So it's probably worse for you because of the frame rate difference.
Yeah, maybe, yeah.
So
Yeah.
I'm seeing it at 50 hertz, but you're seeing it a 50 hertz image at 60 hertz. So probably. Are you watching it? You're watching it on the Zoom call?
I've got both the Zoom and the stream up.
Oh, that's why you can hear the game sound. Yeah, I have to say this is. I mean, I guess you can kind of see that the positioning is tricky. I'm having to kind of adjust the joystick very, very carefully.
Mm.
And it's not the same as if it was a trackball. But it's definitely much better than, going right and then waiting for it to track right far enough. What I found with the other missile commands was that it's basically a timing thing. You're trying to hit the fire button, or the appropriate fire button, at the point where your reticle gets to the right place as it's tracking across. Whereas this is about positioning the reticle as accurately as possible and then hitting the trigger. And also, you don't lead the ICBMs. Certainly not at this level. I think later on, as they get faster, you need to a little bit.
I always found that was one of the best things about Missile Command, having to lead them and judge where they're going to be.
Yeah. Actually, I just started this up on the base mode as well. So my control. Did you hear that little boop that indicates that I'm now on a different wave?
Yeah.
Every 7. I guess it's every 7 mini waves. Ah, so maybe that's what it is. It's every 7 mini waves.
That's when you get your.
That's when the speed increases.
Oh, so you've got 5 shots per wave, not per missile.
Yeah.
Well, that would make more sense.
Yes, that does make more sense. So yes,
So you get rewarded for waiting for the ones that are crossed, because you kind of get an extra missile, don't you?
Yeah. So by the end of the wave, that really counts. There we go. That was the end of the wave. So that's wave 1. Wave 2. Wave 3. Oops. Wave 4. Wave 5. Wave 6. Wave 7 and it boots.
There you go. Yep.
I wasn't counting my missiles, but
Well, you're way under 5 per
I must have
round.
been, yeah.
Way under.
Yeah, but to play this well, you might have to be counting.
Do you get an extra 35, or does it reset to 35?
I think you get. That's a good question. I think you get 35. I think it resets to 35. So I don't think you can store them up. So it's now gone.
Oof.
Yeah. So it's now gone green. You see the. Oh dear. So the ICBMs are now green. Okay. Got an extra. See, there's no way I could have done that with a digital joystick. Oops. Damn it. That just went a bit glitchy. $4,000. Oh dear.
Oh.
Right.
Oh, the west side has been wiped out.
Yeah, I'm just going to have to focus on
Yes.
one city.
I don't remember whether you got your bases back in Missile Command. I don't remember.
Oh, something. Oh, so that just glitched. That was weird. That just glitched. That's my high score, 4740.
Yep. Seems very satisfying to play anyway.
Yes, yeah, it's really good. I'm really impressed with it. All right, I've got a recording error up here. I hope the stream is still running, but it looks like the recording has died.
The stream is running, yes.
Cool. All right. Well, that was interesting. Anyway, I hope that was enjoyable. I think there was some really interesting stuff there, and it's really good to chat.
Yeah, it's an interesting game.
Yeah,
I think I'll go and fire up the emulator and see if I can get it running on that.
Yeah. Yeah, and I mean, I just think it's going to be really interesting to sort of try some of these games that were specific, exclusive to one of these platforms, and see if we can get them running on a different platform and see if they behave differently. See if the joystick and the way that it works makes the game different somehow. But yeah, that's really good, really enjoyable. All right.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. So I'm not sure how often we're going to do this. Probably not weekly anymore, but I'll let you know when we decide to do it next time, and we'll think of something else to play that's interesting. All right.
I'm just thinking that all of these systems that you're repairing and sorting out, you'll have to when you finish getting them all up and running, you have to present them to the National Video Games Museum.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, they have examples of these original examples, but I think part of their remit is to get people playing and engaging with the machine.
That's right.
So
Yes.
I think it would be really fun just to do like a sort of Saturday afternoon workshop and set them up and have people come and play them and sort of just discover this bit of sort of video gaming history and kind of British hardware manufacturers and games makers that are completely overshadowed by the microcomputer revolution that everybody knows so much more about. I mean, I honestly, I didn't know that these machines existed a year ago.
I'd never heard of them.
Yeah. So they're not really mentioned that much. They're so obscure, and so I don't think people have really engaged with the games. I don't think they've played the games the way they were originally designed and intended to play. So and loads of people I've spoken to that even have these machines, they don't have a TV they can plug it into anymore.
No.
And so they haven't played them since they were kids. So I really don't think anyone's playing them really, apart from maybe the guys at sort of Norwich Retro Gaming Club and a few old geezers who are kind of remembering what it's like or had them when they were younger and are trying to do something with them. So I think it's a very small community, isn't it, Derek?
I think so, yeah.
Very obscure. All right, guys.
Yeah.
Enjoy the rest of your Sunday. Anyone who's watching
you
this.
too. Thanks very much for doing this, Chris.
No worries.
No, good.
Cheers. Bye, Derek.
Yeah, see you, Lee. Bye now.